Good morning, folks. Sheepdog Smokey here as always, and I've I've talked about this before, but it's something that just keeps coming up, and it's why I have the giveaway going that I have. If you've not read or seen that yet, it is for 500 subscribers. One person will win a copy of 1984 or Brave New World. At 1,000, it will be a copy of both. Uh, Very simply, we have candidates from the Democratic Party that seem to have read 1984 and thought, this is wonderful, we should do this. But before we get going, make sure you go on and subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like the video so that we can go on and expand as far as possible. Very simply, 1984 states several things as it portrays a world subjugated by tyrants. Oceania is the setting for this, of course, but there are the other continents. But in that society, children are indoctrinated from a very young age and basically told, find people to have arrested. You are not allowed to criticize the government. You are not allowed to think for yourself. You don't choose your job. You don't choose where you live. Ultimately, you are an automaton there simply to produce children so that when the government exterminates you, they still have people they can put into jobs to tax. Senator Sanders is one of the loudest voices right now demanding federally funded preschool. He couches it as helping people because, well, right now you have to work, so this is going to free you up. You don't have to pay for daycare. But none of the federal funding will go to actual daycares like people use, which are predominantly churches, or at least very closely associated with them. My grandmother in the 1970s and 80s ran the daycare at one of the local Baptist churches. My sister and I both went there after school. I went there most of the time until I started kindergarten. And it was very simply daycare. We had story time. We had playtime on the playground. They would put down a sheet and use the air popper to make popcorn. And we would just play games. And we were there to be kids. Yes, we were being taught lessons. You don't push, you don't shove, you don't hurt, you don't scream, all that little stuff. But it was very basic because we were 2 and 3 and 4 years old. I mean, I know they had rooms for people to drop off basically infants where they were just basically rocked and cooed over for the day. But it let people have their time. And there was no indoctrination. We weren't being taught even to read. We weren't being taught this is good, this is bad as far as society. We were taught keep your hands to yourself and be kind. That's it. And that's all a daycare should ever try to teach. Maybe when a child is 4 years old, you see if they know their address or their phone number or things like that, but that's very basic information. Quite honestly, I don't know that many children are really even should know to their phone number or their address anymore because all of them are walking around with a cell phone. My niece had one at 6 years old that she had in her bag. And it was the same theory that we used many, many years ago when my nephew was about 8 or 9, when we went to Universal Studios Florida. We got a Android phone that we could start a line for no contract because we owned the phone. And we programmed my number, my brother's number, my mom's number, my dad's number as shortcuts on the home screen with our faces as the icon. We didn't tell him you need to know Nana's phone number so that you can have a security guard or police officer call. We simply told him if you get lost, go into a store, hand the phone to the clerk, and point to one of the icons. And all of them were labeled emergency. That way, that person could hit that icon. One of us would answer. He or she could tell us where in the park they were, and we could go pick up our nephew. We had some GPS location at that time, but this is pushing 10 years ago almost. So it was very minimal, and we really couldn't do anything there to track him. And I really don't know that I like having those things turned on. I don't use location services on my phone for much at all. But having that, he didn't need to know anything other than Nana, Papa, Dad, and Bubba. And we had our icons with our faces on it, and he could hit one and call, and he could hand it to an adult with a name badge or a badge and say, can you tell my uncle where we are? And quite honestly, he never got more than about 2 feet from my side, seeing as both of us wanted to ride all the same rides. So we just were all over the park, and we crisscrossed. My parents would take a break and we'd find him again, and we had a great time, but we knew he had a way to do this. We didn't need him to have daycare. And that's a lot of the reason, I think, why these liberal wannabe tyrants are all but frothing at the mouth, because they can't get this pushed through. They have to couch all of their messages in the vein of, you have a right to this, that, or the other, and this is a basic human right, so that the people that don't know any better will actually hear it and go, you know what, I do. I have a right to any job I want, and I have a right to not have to pay for someone's services. We're hearing nothing but free education, free healthcare, free preschool, free this, free that. Nothing in this world is free, okay? If you want to eat, you either pay to buy food because someone grew it or raised the animal and then harvested the food, or you have to find it, harvest it, and cook it yourself. So you pay in money or you pay in effort. But we have a generation now entering the adult world that firmly believe that anything and everything they want is a right, and that they should never be asked to pay for it. And it's frightening, really. Senator Sanders is an open socialist. He vacationed and honeymooned in the Soviet Union after being ejected from a kibbutz in Israel, and it was a Marxist colony. He has praised Castro and other dictators who have put all these things in place, where you surrender your child to government at an extremely young age. You have no choice in where that child will be cared for while you work. And taxes go up and up and up so that you have to work. When I was very, very young, my father had a good job. He worked for a railroad. My mother didn't have to work. She did after I went to started school, and my brother could stay with one of my grandparents or an aunt or an uncle, because she wanted to help people. She was a social worker. Ultimately, they tried to start a business, ended up needing to be a two-income family and so on. But by that time, all of my siblings and I were in higher grades at school, so we were in school all day anyway. But it was her choice at the beginning. Now, with the price of gasoline, insurance, housing, utilities, clothing, and everything else, it's very rare to find a single income family. I mean, technically I am one, because I am my only family in the sense of taxes. I spend a good amount of money helping my parents with various things, but that's my choice. What you see behind me is really the whole of the house I have right now, because I'm building as I have the cash. I do have debt. Unfortunately, Dave Ramsey's plan is taking its time with me, but I am working. And it's frightening to hear people with enough power to submit bills to Congress to become law actually say and believe that they have the right to basically take your child from you at a very early age and begin indoctrinating them. Back to 1984, children were basically taught to look for subversives, people who would speak ill of the government. So if your parents came home and they complained that it was a long day at work and that they wished they could just have some time off, that's subversive. And the child would report their parents, and the parents vanish. Ultimately, then that child is taken to another home, and they're continued to be raised in that environment. And then they grow up and are working their butts off, having kids, and when they complain that they're very, very tired after work and just want some time off, their kids turn them in, and the cycle continues. I don't know really what we're going to have happen to stop the just full bore run towards tyranny and subjugation. We have better than half of our government who firmly believe they have a right to rule. Congressmen, senators, the president, judges, they were never meant to be rulers. They were meant to be public servants. And in the beginning, that's what they were. They would serve and then they would go home and they would go back to their lives. Now, because they've realized they can vote themselves a raise, and no one's going to vote against that, and then they can vote to give themselves a lifetime pension, and they can go on to become news commentators and book writers and make millions. They have no qualms telling you that you are an evil bigot because you oppose being ruled by socialist elitists. And it's not going to be a good end, because ultimately it will end in a conflict between those who want to rule and those they wish to rule. And there will be people who they wish to rule who will side with them and say, but you'll get this free, and you'll get this free, and you'll get this free. No, you won't. You'll be taxed more and more and more to pay for all of these free programs. And those who are good little servants will be given bonuses. And those who complain about working their butts off to pay for the elite to eat steak and lobster will be taken to re-education camps or worse. It's not far from when we hear someone openly say, yes, I have a right to rule. We already have people who have openly said that they have a right to be protected by guns, but you don't. And for the time being, we do still have enough logic and common sense in a few of the people in Congress to help stop some of this stuff. But it's less and less every election. I mean, Reagan was very, very much correct when he said, our republic is only one generation from destruction at any given time. And those who wish for it worked slowly and from the background to change education into indoctrination, to where they could openly say that evil gun is the problem. Not the person using it to murder, but the gun is the problem. And if they ever get gun control passed and everyone but the government is disarmed, then it will be, well, knives are the problem. Well, bats are the problem. Rocks are the problem. Cars are the problem. Pressure cookers are the problem. You know what? Then they'll finally say, I'll just say, you idiots are the problem. So we're just going to rule you 24/7. At that point, it's too late. And I really hope I'm not here to see that. I really do. I've talked long enough on this. Honestly, I'm kind of getting tired of this same old topic coming up so often, but it does, and I'm not going to be silent on it. Let me know what you think, but remember, as always, stay civil. We're not here to scream and yell at each other. We're here to debate and discuss, and dissent and disagreement is fine. Just stay civil. Please, again, remember to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that we can grow the conversation in the community. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.